Joe Rogan says grass-fed beef fights climate change. Your Whole Foods label promised carbon-neutral burgers. Regenerative ranchers claim they're saving the planet, one cow at a time. But what if I told you that according to a 2025 study in the Proceedings for National Academy of Sciences, grass-fed beef in the United States typically produces 10 to 25% more greenhouse gas emissions per kilogram of beef than regular beef. And that's in the best managed systems. A 2023 global meta-analysis found that some operations produce 42% more emissions per kilogram. How did we get the story so backwards? Hello, growers. Welcome to Modern Grower, where we follow the science, even when it's complicated. Look, I've been that person at the farmer's market paying $15 a pound for grass-fed beef, feeling morally superior to the plebs buying regular hamburger. I watched Kiss the Ground on Netflix. I followed regenerative agriculture Instagram accounts. I had a podcast called Grassfed Life. I wanted to believe. But then I started reading the actual research, not the marketing, not the documentaries, the peer-reviewed science. And what I found made me question everything. Today we're investigating why grass-fed beef often has higher greenhouse emissions than grain-fed, the carbon sequestration claims that don't add up, what this means for your dinner choices. Subscribe and hit the bell because we're about to slaughter some sacred cows. Literally. The story we've been told. Here's the narrative everyone believes. Factory farms are bad, cows on grass, good. It's simple, intuitive, and appeals to our deepest instincts about what's natural. The story goes, grass-fed cows eat their natural diet, their grazing sequesters carbon in the soil, no evil corn monocultures needed. Happy cows equal happy planet. Even celebrities are buying ranches to raise carbon-negative beef. But here's the problem. When scientists actually measure the emissions, the numbers tell a completely different story. Let me share what recent research actually shows. A PNAS 2025 study said U.S. grass-fed systems produce 10 to 25% more emissions than feedlot beef, even with carbon sequestration included. A PLOS 1 2023 meta-analysis by David and Thompson said global averages show 42% higher carbon footprint, but with significant regional variation. An important caveat, these are averages. Individual operations vary widely. There's an important distinction. These studies compare fully grass-finished cattle to conventional systems. Most beef, labeled grass-fed in stores, spends 6 to 12 months on pasture before grain finishing. It's not the same as the grass-finished beef in these studies. The studies primarily focus on temperate regions like the US, Europe, and Australia. Results might differ in tropical grasslands or other ecosystems. But wait, what about soil carbon sequestration? The methane problem. Now with science. Here's why grass-fed cattle produce more methane, according to the ruminant nutrition research. The science of cowbirds. Grass contains more cellulose and lignin than grain. It's harder to digest and requires a longer fermentation time. More fermentation means more methane-producing microbes. The result? 20 to 30% more lifetime methane emissions. Think of it this way. Grain is like fast food for cows, quick to digest. Grass is like a tough steak. It takes forever to break down. That extra digestion time means more methane. But there's more complexity. Methane's warming potential. It's 28 to 36 times more potent than CO2 over 100 years. There's seasonal variation. Winter grass means even more methane. An age factor, an extra 6 to 12 months to market, means continuous emissions. Note: scientists are testing feed additives like seaweed to reduce methane in both systems, but these are more commonly used in feedlots where feed can be precisely controlled. The land use reality with full context. The land requirements vary enormously. Why such a huge range? It's all about grass productivity. Iowa's lush pastures can support a cow on 2 acres. Nevada's desert range, the same cow needs 40 acres just to find enough to eat. Best case, 2 times more land. That's on highly productive Midwest pastures. Worst case, 20 times more. Arid western rangelands. Average, 5 to 10 times more. Most U.S. operations. Here's where opportunity cost comes in, and it's complicated. The carbon opportunity cost. Think of land like a retirement account. Pasture is like a savings account earning 1% interest. Forest is like an investment earning 10%. The opportunity cost is the difference between what you're earning and what you could be earning. According to life cycle assessments, the same land could, as a forest, sequester 3 to 100 tons of CO2 per hectare per year. As a restored prairie, 1 to 3 tons. As a pasture, 0.3 to 1.8 tons. There's an important caveat. Not all pasture land could become a forest. In arid regions, the land might remain shrubland even if ungrazed. The opportunity cost varies enormously by location, highest in areas that could support forest, lowest in true rangelands. Carbon sequestration, the full picture. Let's get specific about soil carbon science. What we know: initial sequestration, 0.3 to 0.5 tons of carbon per hectare per year. That's highly dependent on previous land use. Degraded land means more potential. Climate. Rainfall matters enormously. Management. Rotational grazing versus continuous. Soil type. Clay holds more carbon. Critical distinction. These sequestration rates apply to degraded land being restored. Well-managed pastures that have been grazed for decades show much lower or no additional sequestration potential. The saturation problem. Most sequestration happens in the first 20 to 30 years. Then soil carbon reaches equilibrium. But some scientists argue certain practices could extend this. The permanence issue. Research shows carbon can be lost through drought. Australia lost 70% in one severe drought. Management changes, temperature increases, and land conservation. White oak pastures, a balanced view. The white oak pastures case deserves nuanced discussion. What they did right: they converted degraded cropland with high sequestration potential into an integrated system with multiple species. They were transparent about their methods and pioneered measurement techniques. Why scientists are skeptical: not peer-reviewed, assumes maximum sequestration continues indefinitely, specific to previously degraded land, and the results are not replicated at scale. The scientific consensus: even if accurate, this represents the best-case scenario, not typical outcomes. Let's show the full picture with important context. U.S. feedlot beef, average 22 to 27 kilograms of CO2 equivalent. Best operations, 18 kilograms of CO2 equivalent. Includes feed production, transportation, methane, and processing. U.S. grass-finished beef, average 30 to 40 kilograms CO2 equivalent. The best regenerative, 20 to 30 kilograms CO2 equivalent. Extensive rangeland, over 50 kilograms of CO2 equivalent. This includes all of the above, plus land opportunity cost. Note, processing and distribution add less than 10% to these totals. The vast majority of emissions happens on the farm. For context, other proteins break down like this. Plant-based burgers, 2 to 3 kilograms CO2 equivalent. Lab-grown beef, an early estimate is 4 to 7 kilograms. Chicken, 6 to 7 kilograms. Pork, 7 to 10 kilograms. What about the global context? In regions with deforestation for grazing, like the Amazon and Cerrado, emissions can exceed 100 kilograms of CO2 equivalent per kilogram when land use change is included. Where grass-fed systems can excel: biodiversity, when well managed, soil structure and water retention, animal welfare, reduced antibiotic use, local food security. The trade-off nobody mentions. Converting pastures to forest maximizes carbon storage, but might reduce grassland biodiversity. Some species need open grasslands to survive. It's not always a simple win-win. The climate reality. These benefits, while real, don't offset the higher greenhouse gas emissions in most systems. What this means for modern growers and modern eaters. When grass-fed might make climate sense. On truly marginal land that can't grow crops or forest. Previously degraded land being restored. Integrated silvopasture systems. Traditional indigenous rangeland management. There's limited data here, but promising in specific contexts like Africa and the U.S. Southwest. For consumers, reducing beef consumption has the biggest climate impact. When eating beef, choose based on your values. Climate is just one factor. All beef has high emissions compared to other proteins. For producers, focus on efficiency within a chosen system. Consider silvopasture, which means integrating trees with your grazing animals and the pasture. Targeting degraded lands for restoration. Stacking enterprises for economic viability. Emerging alternatives. Lab-grown meat, 96% less land use. Plant-based proteins, 90% fewer emissions. Funding disclosure. Studies cited include research funded by environmental groups, beef industry associations, and government agencies. We've prioritized peer-reviewed research and noted conflicts where relevant. But hey, growers, being a modern grower following the data wherever it leads, even when it's through an uncomfortable pasture. We've planted some seeds of science today that might challenge what you thought you knew. But that's how we grow, with facts, with evidence, and with the courage to change our minds when the research shows us a better way. Keep growing, growers, and catch the next video where we dig into an agriculture truth or an agricultural myth. That's TBD. This is Modern Grower, growing knowledge and growing better. Thanks for watching. Until next time, be nice, be thankful, and do the work.